We love to motor four-wheel drives and spend money on them to make them flash and good and everything, but you can't ignore the basic maintenance. Now, brakes are one of those things that, while basic, are so important to your car. You want to make sure they're working both on-road and off. And the best way to do this is to check them, because if yours look anything like Andy's, you're asking for trouble. So today we're going to go through a complete brake replacement, so you can do it yourself if you feel confident. So whether you have a Hilux, a Land Cruiser, a Patrol, all brakes are very similar, so this should apply to most situations. Now, we're also going to adjust the notorious reputation that these Land Cruisers have for a bad handbrake. I believe if they're adjusted correctly, they're actually fine. You don't need anything fancy, you just need to adjust them properly. That being said, let's look at what tools we're going to need. Start off with, you're going to need jack stands. If you're ever jacking your car up, you've got to put stands underneath. It's too dangerous not to. You need a jack, obviously, to get the car up. First of all, we've gone ahead, we're going to put new rotors, new shoes, new pads front and rear. You're going to need sockets, torque wrench, ratchets, pliers, needle nose pliers. You may even need a bit of a lump hammer to try and get the drum off with. Always brake cleaner, let's clean them all up, bit of degreaser. And at the end, right on the end there, cold beer for when we're done. Happy days, let's get into it. The first thing we're going to do is the front wheels, and the very first thing, apart from chalking the wheels, putting the handbrake on, making sure the car's secure, jack stands, obviously never just a jack. I've got the jack in there as a safety as well. But you want to take the cover off the master cylinder. And the reason you want to do that is when we replace brake pads, obviously there's going to be a bit of meat missing. So when the new pads go in, they're going to be a lot thicker, which means the pistons are going to have to be pushed back into the caliper a bit, which means that the fluid level in the master cylinder is going to rise up. Now, you've got to let that air escape somehow. So when you take this cover off, it's just going to let those pistons go back into the caliper a lot easier and not fight against the pressure being put in by the cap. So take the cap off, put it somewhere safe. I'll put it on the bull bar. Let's see what brakes we have here and what they all do. So with the wheel off, let's talk about what brakes do. So this is your rotor. This is where the pads compress. So the pads are inside here. This is called the caliper for anybody who's just starting out. If you are starting out and you don't know what a caliper is and what a brake rotor is, I don't think you should be doing this yourself, because brakes are super, super important. And if you don't stop, you're going to crash. That's physics. So if you don't know what you're doing, don't do this. If you do know what you're doing, or you think you can do it competently, rip into it. Pads compress onto the rotors, brake comes in through the brake lines, pushes the piston out, compresses the brake pads onto the rotors, slows you down. That's how disc brake works. Most modern cars will come with disc brakes. The 79 are a bit of a hybrid. The back has disc brakes, but a drum handbrake, so it's a bit of a dinosaur that way. And discs are pretty easy to change. With this one, as well as most cars, what you want to do, there's a pin in here. We're going to, or like a little spring, retaining spring thing, we're going to pop out. That'll allow two pins to come out, which will allow the brake pad holders to come out. We'll change the discs over, pop them back in, push the pins in, put the retainer spring back on, and that should be it done. We might have to push the piston back a bit. So, first thing we're going to do, let's take that little pin out and we'll start getting these pads out. So these are our new brake pads that we're going to put in, and this is one of our old ones now. Let's talk about this. There is a backing plate which helps it stay onto the brake pad. These come with one already, so I'm not going to need this because that's already got one on it. But if you look at the difference in the brake pads, so you can see the new one is obviously heaps thicker, but see that groove is the wear mark. So if you take your brake pads off and it's smooth, there's no line in the middle, your brakes they're gone. They need replaced immediately. These ones here in that valley, there's probably, I'd say, 2 mil left of brake wear in this. So these are definitely on their way out. You can see the difference in the thickness of the brake pad there. So this is going to make a massive difference to Andy's brakes. Let's put these in. All right, so with the two pads out, we've got to get these pistons back in. Now the ones on this side came back fairly easily, but whenever you're pushing a piston back, you want to definitely push it from the middle of the piston, because if you push it on an edge, it'll kind of kink it, and I won't want to slide back in. So, I mean, I guess one of the easiest ways is when you're getting the old pad out, just keep leveraging it back till the pistons are flat, or you'll want to get maybe a G-clamp with a plate or something on it, so you are clamping in the middle of that piston. So with that said, we've just got to push these pistons back and we'll put the pads in. That side's done. We'll do the other side, drop it down, and then we'll do the back. Fronts are done, time for the backs. So I'm just going to pause here for a sec. This is future Richo talking. We may have made some crucial errors at this point. Let me take you through what happened. So we took the rotor off and we replaced the entire handbrake shoe assembly, showing how it is done. Then we went to put the rotor back on. It was a little bit tight, and I tried 5 or 6 times to try and get the rotor back into position, and it just wouldn't work. So in my infinite wisdom, I deduced that more force was the solution, and I just ugga-dug the rotor on using the wheel studs. But then when I tried to turn the axle, it was seized and it wouldn't budge.
I don't know what's wrong with it though, it's assembled correctly.
So then I tried to get the rotor off, and I spent the next hour and a half trying to get it off, and it just wouldn't come off. So I tried using the bolts on the side to force it off. So I stripped them, so then I rethreaded them and still no luck. So I did what I should have done in the first place and gave up. Called a mechanic for help, and it turns out it was the simplest solution. So now back to past Richo, and he will explain what happened. I've hit a bit of a snag now. I tried to force the drum back on because I test fitted it. You'll see in the time lapse, I had it on and off, on and off, on and off about 5 times. Everything looked fine. The one thing I didn't do was back off the handbrake adjuster. So even though I backed the handbrake off and I released it with chock the front wheels, when I released the handbrake, there's also in these cruisers, there's a 10mm nut on there, on a thread, on a booker rod. We have to release that. It releases all the tension in the cables, because what's happened over the years, this handbrake's just been adjusted and adjusted and adjusted till it's absolutely at its end. And so even though when we put these shoes on, they were still under tension. So when we went to put the drum on, it was so tight that I ended up stupidly using the wheel nut studs to push or to pull the drum on. I ended up having to get a mechanic, Craig, who's Logan's dad behind the camera, to come out, and he actually had to angle grind and cut this rotor apart to get it off. Now we had to buy new rotors anyways, because these ones are all stuffed, so it didn't really matter. But yeah, big lesson there for me to learn. I didn't realize that you should back that leather adjustment off. So if you're doing a 79 or any 70 series handbrake, really back that adjustment off. And there's also another one behind the drum here that you could release too. So, whew, yeah, I was actually a little bit nervous. Andy was proper cross with me because he thought I'd stuffed it all up. I've had to go and buy more new brake shoes because we actually stuffed these trying to get this back off again. So I'm gonna take these ones off and we're gonna start from scratch. New fitting kit, new brake shoes, new rotor, new discs. Everything's new, so this is going to be beautiful, and we'll adjust the handbrake up just smick. Whew. So with that being said, let's get this done. So what we've got to do is take the springs off, take the dog bone out, and there's 2 locating pins that we have to take out too, and then the shoes will come away from the hub. So on the passenger side, this is the shoe that's up towards the front of the vehicle. Now behind it is this arm. Now there is a big industrial agricultural circle up here. We actually have to transfer this onto the new pad. So I'm going to take this up to the vise and spread this circlip apart, and then take this lever off, and we'll put it on the new pads. So with that done, that's our new lever, our old lever back on the new shoe. Let's take this over and we'll start assembling everything back onto the hub. Just as a kind of nice thing to do, when I was at Repco picking up the shoes, I got some more brake cleaner. So I'm just going to hit this whole thing with some brake cleaner, just to make it as new as possible before we put all the new stuff in. All right, so these are the old brake shoes that we don't know how long they've been on Andy's car for. We do know they've been through the glasshouse mud. This is the new one. There's probably not that much difference in the fat of the pads. They should last a long time, but anyway, won't do any harm to replace them. So with that being said, let's start reassembling. First thing we want to do is reconnect the handbrake cable up to the shoe, to that arm that we just installed. Then we put the retaining spring on the top, and finally the retaining pin that comes in through the back, and through a spring and a half twist of that top bolt washer head, lock it all onto the hub. So the rear shoe we want to put on exactly the same way, but we want to pop the dog bone in on the way through, then the top retaining clip, and then the side retaining pin as well. After that's finished, we then just want to pop that adjuster up underneath in between the 2 brake pads, and that's it. Pretty much complete, just a few more springs to put in. Whew, right, so That's the 2 new brake shoes, completely on, completely fitted. Now, the test is we'll get a new rotor and see if it's gonna slide up easily to that. So the new rotor, obviously, compared to the old one, look, there's no rust, this is brand new. This is gonna make a world of difference. And if the other one was warped, with the rear pad, you won't get that warpy feeling when you brake, that shudder. So hopefully this will be amazing. So let's just pop this on. Oh, straight on. Ah. Craig, if you're watching this, you are a genius. Gotta back those adjusters off, straight on, nothing like the last time. Look at that. And the hub's moving, which it didn't do the last time either. So from here, what we're gonna do, we'll adjust the handbrake up. We'll put the caliper back on with the discs first, and then we'll start adjusting this handbrake up. But basically what we'll wanna do is make sure that that hole's at the bottom where the adjuster is down here, and we can get out and just get a screwdriver in and adjust it up. But on the face of it, happy days, let's get going. All right, so as you've seen on the fronts, we're onto the discs at the rear now. They're gonna be very similar. We've taken the old pads out, put the new pads in. We've got our caliper. We've pushed the piston back using a G-clamp again. So the piston's right in. We have lifted the master cylinder lid off still, so there's no pressure build up there. So now it's just a case of reassembling the calipers onto the brake drums, and off we go.
5 minutes later.
This side's done, calipers on, happy days. We'll go and do the other side, the driver's side, and then we'll come back and we'll show you how we're going to adjust the handbrake shoes up so the handbrake's nice and tight and doesn't roll down the slightest hill anymore when it's full on. And what we're going to do now is we're going to talk you through how to adjust the handbrake properly. So with the new shoes in, the first thing we're going to do is adjust that star wheel at the bottom just until the wheel grabs. Then we're going to back it off a little bit. From then we're going to look at the adjustment just behind the drum where the cable has a stopper on it. We're going to adjust that up properly, and then finally we'll get into the cab where the handbrake is, and we'll adjust those locking nuts down just to the point where the cable's got a nice taut feeling to it. And that should be the end of Andy's handbrake problems. So what I'm doing is, with the screwdriver, I'm actually rotating that star wheel in a clockwise direction until it stops the hub spinning. Then I'm going to back it off about 2 turns just until the hub starts spinning again, and that should be the shoes adjusted correctly. So with the other side adjusted, I'm just going to do the same on this side, and then we'll get into the cab and tweak the handbrake, and hopefully we should have a perfectly good working handbrake. So the final stage of the adjustment is actually in here at the handbrake now. You saw earlier on we backed off those double locking nuts. All I'm going to do now is tighten them up down to where they just start to feel tight. I'll give the handbrake a pull and just see how many clicks we're getting, see if it feels tight. We'll put the wheels back on, and then we'll take it for a test drive and just see how it all feels. All 4 brakes done, shoes in, disc brakes all round, all finished, all new pads, all adjusted, handbrakes adjusted. That's a good job done, so no more sketchy brakes for Andy. So what we're going to do now, we're going to take it for test drive, just make sure everything's tickety-boo, and that's it. So let's take it for test drive. I'm in neutral. Let's put the handbrake on, and let's see if it's going to roll down the driveway. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1. It stays on the driveway. Andy, got a new handbrake that works. Toyota, factory handbrake, nothing wrong with it. All right, I'm going for a test drive. So, all right, with brakes, like, you don't want to go too hard on the start, so I'm just gonna slowly brake and release and go again. You don't want to just stuff it immediately. Just take it easy, bed them in. So let's try stopping at the light. Oh. Right, brakes are working. Handbrake, very nice handbrake. You don't have to reef it up to the top anymore. Feet off the pedal. You know what? Andy can, well, not so much Andy because he doesn't have trouble with it, but when I go to the dump in this car, because it doesn't, my car has the, when you take your foot off the brake, it has that brake hold, that hill hold, so you can start, like the hill start easy. His doesn't have it. And even when you pulled the handbrake on, it didn't make any difference. You still rolled back. So now I'll be able to do a hill start in this car, which a little bit more confidence at the dump. It's amazing what a handbrake will do. Anyway, I think we're on to a winner here. The brake test has come up trumps. We'll get back to the shed, park it up, and Andy can have his car back. All right, so that's it. Brakes done and adjusted. The car's in the driveway, in neutral, handbrake on, not slipping. Such a result. Look, money in your pocket, you're going to save money. You're going to know it's done right if you're confident doing it. Don't do this if you're not confident, seriously, because you don't want to mess with it. But look, everything's working fine. If you did like this and you want us to do other stuff like this, send us some comments, what you'd like to see us do. Please do like it and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.